Are we live now? Okay. Okay, great. We're live. Welcome. We want to welcome one and welcome all to our town hall tonight. It's called Life is Worth Living. And this is where we're going to talk about mental health among students that are in college, teens, and youth as well. And we want you to take part. Be free to share and comment as we go on. And we want to hear your input. We want you to pay close attention because this is a serious topic. Also, we want to just put out a disclaimer that this information is very sensitive, okay? And it is for educational purposes only. And we are not mental health doctors, and our topics may cause triggers. And if you need mental health, please call 911 or screenshot one of the links we have inside the screen, or you can ask for mental health EMS if you call 911. And I want to say thank you for joining us, and we are excited about the topic on tonight because we know this is very well much needed to discuss among our young people. We are here for you. We're here to support you. My name is Priscilla Prince. I am the parent educator for RAs, Girls and Boys International Corporation. And I'm here, we're here, our team is here to support you. So we're going to have a few speakers. Our first speaker is our college student. Her name is Caris Mullins. She's a student at Pasco Hernando State College. She's a founder of the Community Advocates for LGBTQ Mental Health. She's the CEO of Volunteer Humanity and a humanity rising leader, being diagnosed with anorexia, OCD, and PDD at age 14 and a chronic illness at age 17. Carrie's main goal is to keep moving forward no matter what. Their favorite hobby right now is learning Korean. How awesome is that? Welcome, Caris. Would you mind coming forth and sharing some of your experiences with us, please? Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here and share this space with all of you. As was said, my name is Caris. My pronouns are she, they. A lot of sort of what I go through as a college student and just as a person in general has to do with my diagnosis with anorexia nervosa, which I've been in recovery for 4 years now, which I'm really proud to be able to say. I have diagnosed OCD, what's known as obsessive compulsive disorder, and PDD, which is persistent depressive disorder. That's a chronic form of depression that typically does not go away with traditional treatment or medication. It's typically something a lot of people live with for the rest of their life, and it can cause a lot of different challenges, especially when you're in college and you have a ton of classes and you're moving around all the time, learning how to be an independent adult. All of those things can be especially triggering for people who deal with these sort of issues, especially in very high stress environments like school. As was said, I also am involved in a couple of different businesses, some of them my own, some of them I'm just supporting and working with right now. And I'm really proud to be able to do that. But, it does sort of add on that extra layer of responsibility and stress that you really have to take a hold of and really manage to make sure it doesn't get out of control. And I feel like there's also this culture of overworking in college and, constantly being at the top of your game. That can also be something that really puts stress on you, something that is really common in people with anorexia. I would say eating disorders as a whole, but there are so many different ones that you really can't shove them all into one category. But something with anorexia is perfectionism and control. So once your environment gets out of control, your schedule, you sort of take that out on different things that involve eating and exercise. And that can cause really harmful effects to your body. Anorexia is the number one, it's like the deadliest mental illness. And it was really hard for for me to go through and overcome. Like, full transparency, I really almost didn't. After my diagnosis in 14, I went through a really hard time. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office and being told I basically had to get my life together and go to treatment and start putting an effort towards my recovery, or I was not going to get that chance anymore. In 6 weeks, I was given 6 weeks to basically continue living. And it was a sort of smack in the face. And it really sort of, that memory solidified in my mind, and it's something that keeps me going. It's, I want to, like was said, keep moving forward and really just try my best. So I've found a lot of different ways to cope with this, realizing that, I choose my class schedule, I choose the friends that I make, I choose the places where I work. But just because I choose those places, and just because I'm a part of that space and that area, doesn't always mean I have control over every little thing that's going on. And that can be something that can be really stressful for students that have this sort of disorder. Sort of finding peace with that, this lack of control, and finding excitement in it, in this new journey as an adult, being able to realize, like, oh, well, I can't control everything that's going on, or I'm not always going to get the perfect grade. And instead of, translating that perfectionism and that need for control into disordered eating patterns, I can turn it into a reflective experience. Like, I didn't get this good grade, but that doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means I didn't really understand the concept, and maybe I should ask for help. I have free tutoring, let me go there. There's a bunch of different things that you can do. It can also be a great way to look at work as well, looking at, well, I'm not really feeling good at work today, my performance isn't really doing well. I wonder why that is. And instead of getting stressed out about it, getting curious about it and thinking, why is that? Why am I not feeling great today? Let's address that. Let's look at what I've been feeling today, and really, not ignore it. That's something that's been really powerful for me. I talk a lot about schedules and and organization. That's a big part of my OCD. Something that I used to think was a hindrance in my life. Something I really used to think that was very stressful for me. But recently, really recently, actually, my mindset has changed on that. That I take the steps to not let it overtake my life, because nothing should overtake your life other than your goals and your dreams and your passions, your friendships and the people that you love. But OCD can take over your life, especially when you're young and impressionable, and especially on social media, as OCD is being encouraged and romanticized, which is really hard. It makes people not want to seek treatment. It makes people feel invalidated. And so for the longest time, I sort of just saw it as this hindrance and this burden on myself. But actually, as I've been going through work and doing school, I'm like, well, I don't have to let it control my life, but I can let it help me. One of the big things that I have with OCD is organization. Let's just take hold of that. Let's use it. And I'm able to keep my schedule organized and make classes on time, and organize my study materials and make sure I'm on track. It's been really helpful, actually. It's one of the best things that could have ever happened to me in terms of grades and life, because working 3 jobs and going to college more than full-time at my college is 12 credit hours. I'm doing 15 this semester, a little bit more next semester. So really diving into that and being like, what, this isn't a bad thing. I'm not going to let it control my life. I'm going to let it empower myself, and, really own the fact that I have OCD, and that's just a part of me, and that's okay. And that's nothing to be ashamed about. And it's been something that has really taken the load off of my shoulders. But all of this positive thinking is really nice, but the issue is, on top of these things, I also have persistent depressive disorder, which, as I mentioned, is a chronic form of depression. So a lot of times these thoughts can creep in, like, you're being too optimistic, or stop being so positive. Like, you're not worthy of using these tools or using these coping skills. You deserve to be sad, or all of these intrusive thoughts that can pop into your head. These moments of extreme fatigue and sadness. I've dealt with trauma in my past life, and my past experiences that tend to resurface when I'm having a little bit more of an issue with PDD. And I want to be productive, and I want to do all of these things and enjoy my new adulthood, but with persistent depressive disorder, that doesn't always happen. It makes me want to be a recluse and hide in my room all day and just wallow in it. But what's been really amazing is because I've been able to see that and I'm able to speak it and recognize it when it happens, one of the most powerful things for me to be able to move through that and be like, okay, well, this is just what's happening right now, is be okay that it's happening right now, is to sit in it. My number one thing that I always tell myself and anyone else who is struggling with a negative emotion or depression is it's okay to feel that way and sit in that emotion for a while and not do anything as a distraction. Just sit there and feel that sadness or that anger and then get up and move on. Don't The worst thing you can do is push it down and swallow it and ignore it and feel resigned and be like, well, this is just how I'm going to feel constantly. It's like, no, it's how you feel in this moment. Feel it and move on and move to your next moment. And that's been so nice to be able to experience. I mean, even this morning, I was not feeling great. I have a chronic illness that flares up random times, and this morning it decided to make itself known. And I was not really feeling that great. I was really sad, and I didn't honestly. I was like, "Am I going to be able to do this town hall? Am I going to be able to get my work done today?" And I just sat in my bed, and I'm like, "Oh, you know what I need? I need to sleep a couple extra hours, and I need to, do some self care. I need to calm down and continue pushing through." And I did. I slept I slept in today, and which I normally don't do. And I woke up and I was still not feeling that great, but I'm like, well, that's just how I feel. That doesn't mean that I'm a failure. That doesn't mean that I don't, deserve to enjoy life. And, sort of that thinking has been able to push me through and make it here. And I'm really glad that I could be here today and share this experience with all of you. So, while an eating disorder and OCD and persistent depressive disorder and, all of these things that are quote unquote wrong with me, in reality, there's nothing actually wrong with me. I'm perfectly fine as I am, but quote unquote wrong with me. I'm still here. I'm still in school. I'm still making accomplishments with my career. Um, so, things are going to be bad sometimes, but that doesn't mean they're going to be bad forever. And that's been the biggest thing that I've ever been able to realize for myself. But that's sort of just my spiel. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
You are the epitome of life is worth living. Can I just tell you how I just want to give you like a virtual hug. I have a niece um, um that lost her life, to that the old the anorexia because she didn't know how to call out for help. But you are the epitome of life is worth living. And I want to know, I see your the website at the bottom. Is that how we can get in contact with you in case we want to refer people to you and stuff? Just to, to come over to your blog, hear your story.
Yeah, so
And
that blog is, yeah,
mhm.
it's the Community Advocates for LGBTQ Mental Health. The majority of the blogs I write and research myself, and there are some personal stories on there, but there's also a way to contact me through that website.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's what we need to contact you because I mean, I don't know. I usually have a lot to say, but I don't. I just want to hug you, and I thank you so much for being on. I really do. I mean, you're just so well spoken, and you're saying, and this is the thing with college students. I just okay. Let me just share this real quick. They have to transition now. It's a whole new life. Mom, dad, whoever's not there anymore. The bills need to. You have to figure out how you're going to eat, how you're going to get transportation. You understand what I'm saying? Then also a new set of people that you have to be in around with the other, like you said, quote unquote, things that are wrong with you, right? Okay. Something is going on with Kristen's thing. I'm sorry. I mean Kristen with V's thing. My apologies. And I wanted to say also that you're working 3 jobs, right? And you
Mhm.
taking 15 credits. I've taken 15 credits, and that is a task. That right there is just by itself in itself is like a task in itself. And I want to just thank you for coming on and also for sharing your website. So now we can connect, and I will be staying in contact with you if you don't mind.
I don't
Maybe
mind at
nagging
all.
you a whole lot. Thank you, Karis. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have Victoria. And I want to say Victoria is one of our key social workers that work inside of the schools. schools for IRAs. She was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. My apologies. My apologies. V is a school social worker with IRAs and a certified special education teacher. She has focused on mental illness, trauma, suicide, and incarceration during her studies on the clinical social work track. V also has experienced mental health struggles, suicidal ideation, and a suicide attempt. V finds purpose in serving underserved communities and feels most effective when serving within a school setting. Marvelous, marvelous work she's doing. I mean, that V is doing for the schools, and we are here. We have her here on with us. Now, can we get V to come forth?
Hello.
Sorry, my apologies.
It's okay. Can you hear me? I think so.
Are we able to get V front and center?
Can y'all at least hear me? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share a bit of statistics that are really important. Most of them come from the National Institute of Mental Health and the CDC. Some of them come from a couple of other sources as well. And so, just starting out with one of the most important, suicide is the 10th leading reason of death in the US. Um, However, for people ages 10 through 34, it's actually the second leading reason of death. So, it's pretty big in society, but also it's really big amongst teens and young adults and adolescents. So, something just really important for our workshop here, since we're talking about people in college, that's right in the middle of that age group. The suicide rate in the US has increased by 35% since 1999. Um, 46% of people who commit suicide had a diagnosed mental health condition. 90% of people who commit suicide had shown symptoms of a mental health disorder, um, according to interviews with friends, family, medical professionals, but they had not all of them had been diagnosed. So, like 46% were diagnosed. Um, Approximately 78% of people who die by suicide are male, and transgender adults are 12 times more likely to attempt suicide than the general population. Um, So those are really important, just because there's some really key things to think about for adolescents. Risk factors are running away from home, self injury. So those are things to look out for. Also, for females like that have same sex experience, that's something that increases their chances. Not obviously not a direct correlation, but the point is that people who are part of the LGBTQ community have a higher risk for suicide and suicide ideations, just given the response that society has. For males, some risk factors are smoking and dating violence victimization. Some protective factors for adolescents are feeling supported by peers, feeling safe at school, and being on a team or being involved with an extracurricular activity outside of school. So those things are important because protective factors can keep you alive. And just if you have peers that you're supported by, especially at that age, adolescents are looking for, peer approval, peer support, and just for others that are their age to actually see them, to hear them, to care about them. Feeling safe at school is huge, and that goes into college as well. For instance, I know, like, let's say being part of the LGBTQ community, there are some schools that have a bigger presence or have more just acceptance, and there are some schools that aren't, and that can be a key factor in whether some people actually feel like they belong. Um, Being in a team is important because let's say you don't have family supports, or you don't have some other access to other supports, just like becoming a part of something that could be like a second family, or just like, another protective factor is important. When it comes down to gender, and the study that I'm looking at breaks down into men and women binary. So it actually is very, just to disclaim, it's limited in scope, and it does not include a broader gender spectrum, which again, people that are outside of the binary are actually way more at risk for suicidal ideation. But within the binary, men have higher suicide rates and use more violent means of suicide than women. Um, and one thing that's been known to be a protective factor is marriage. So men who are like married, that becomes like a purpose and helps them stay alive, or just like is a protective factor. For women, they have higher rates of deliberate self harm and suicidal ideation. So you'll see that women may struggle with suicidal ideation more, but then men will be more likely to complete suicide. And for women, protective factors are having a young child or being pregnant. Because again, these protective factors are often tied to belonging or having a purpose for being here. Um, I also wanted to just point out highlight some signs, some warning signs of suicide. Many people don't necessarily know what to look for, or people kind of hear people saying like, I don't want to be here anymore, or I really want to kill myself, and then we'll see it as a cry for help, or someone who wants attention, which in reality, even if it is a cry for help, then the person needs help. And even if it is a cry for attention, what type of attention is it? It's somebody who wants attention to their needs. But at the end of the day, one of the biggest precursors to someone actually completing suicide is telling people that they want to do that. So there have been plenty of times when people have kind of just swept that to the side. Oh, you're the person who cried wolf. You keep saying it over and over, and that is actually a big risk factor. If people do not hear you, if people don't take you serious, sometimes it becomes a challenge, and the person says, "Well, you'll see when I'm gone." Um, so that's one of the biggest ones. It seems obvious, but it's also one of those things where people feel uncomfortable. They tell, even when it's not, oh, you're just saying that. Sometimes people are like, oh, don't say that. We don't say those things, or cheer up. Not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to, give somebody hope, or to kind of tell them like, I'm here. I care about you. You matter to me. Um, Other warning signs are giving away items of importance or high meaning to the person. Like if you know somebody had this ring or this necklace that someone gave them, or that they never take off, and suddenly they're like, oh, I want you to have this. You can take that as a warning sign. That could be somebody is giving away their possessions so that they can leave. Saying directly that they want it in their lives, as I mentioned, buying weapons or pills. If someone was not previously interested in weapons or doesn't go hunting, buying weapons is one of the biggest things, because it's also one of the ways that is usually completed. Like there are some other forms that are kind of harder to complete suicide, but weapons is a clear sign. Like if I say I'm going to do something and then I buy a weapon, that's literally escalating to the next level of risk. Um, Saying phrases that are kind of coded. It might not be directly "I'm going to kill myself," but it can be "I just can't do this anymore. Everyone is better off without me. Um, Maybe I shouldn't be here." Things like that. Just kind of things that kind of imply I'm not enjoying life. I would rather be somewhere else. I wish I could sleep forever. Um, those are things to definitely look out for, and to ask if someone is saying things like that. Don't shy away from the question. You should ask this person, are you thinking of ending your life, or am I hearing that you're considering suicide? Because actually asking the question lessens the risk, because sometimes it's when someone explores it, they might be less likely to do it on impulse. Someone explores it and expresses themselves. Yes, that is what I'm thinking. This is why. And then you kind of go down, well, what is the root of that? How can I help? Or it helps you kind of, position them to get help. Being happy and carefree for seemingly no reason after being depressed for a long period of time, it sounds counterintuitive. If someone's happy, you're like, oh, finally they're happy, they're not depressed anymore. But to be honest, if this person has been generally depressed or just like really suicidal, and suddenly they're like, I don't care, I feel great. Sometimes that's because they actually decided that I'm going to do the thing that's going to free me. I'm going to do the thing that's not going to have me feel pain anymore. And so, why should I be upset? All of this is very, very temporary and it's going to end soon. Um, and that's the type of thing you want to look for. Um, Even like being more careless, carefree, seeking more thrill, self harm, those things can be warning signs. Not as big, but something to definitely look into, because in that sense, the person is like taking less care of themselves. But again, it goes to personality. Some people are thrill seekers, and it's perfectly fine. Um, saying goodbyes, saying goodbyes, or having unusually sentimental moments with loved ones, that can be a warning sign. Sometimes people don't want to say it directly because they don't want to alarm people, but they do want to cherish those last moments. And so they might, be, oh, I just want to thank you and give you your flowers while I still can, that sort of thing, or just really sentimental in ways they aren't usually. That can be a warning sign. And the last one that I'll offer is canceling future plans. If someone has canceled future plans, or you ask them, that's a good question actually to ask someone who's considering. I like, um, what are your future plans, or even having them make future plans with you, because that's keeping them sometimes just getting through that next day, or having something to look forward to. Even if it's next week, they might be like, well, I do want to go now, but like I have this play in 2 weeks and everyone's counting on me, and you know I'm the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz, and like, so having those future plans are actually really helpful to people who deal with suicidal ideations. So just sharing. And I know something that personally for me is a big one. It's just like I usually do not have many supports. So sometimes feeling a part of something is very important for me. So it might not be a team, but it might be like my work family, like having a really supportive work family. Or, there's some jobs that like when you're absent or when you take a couple of days off, like they check in with you, hey, what's going on? Or there's people who text you, they care, they have certain things to show you that you matter, you know. And sometimes that's really helpful, is just showing somebody you matter to them, that you value their presence on this earth, connecting with them in different ways, having them feel like they're not the only one. And kind of like not making it something like a guilt thing, like, oh, why would you want to leave when everyone's going to be so sad? Avoid those kind of things. Or why would you want to leave when you have a beautiful child on this earth who looks up to you? Sometimes that actually adds more stress and more guilt to the person and makes them feel like, oh, I'm just a failure. I can't even deal with life. And, you know, so those are just some quick things to help you understand the situation a bit more. And hopefully, maybe one day you will be able to help someone that has suicidal ideations, or even find help yourself, or find a community that's understanding.
I have to thank you so much for that, Victoria. The part that you said to me was when you said, "Don't say why you want to do that because you have this or you have a child looking up to you," and that was one of the ways I would say, "Well, we love you so much. Like, why would you understand?" So then, see, this is information that we really need to know because we put more stress and more guilt on that person. Um, you did have a list of resources for us, right? That they can, like, if they feeling like they're in this, like they feel like they're a threat to themselves. Would you like to share some
Yes.
for a moment?
Um,
Oh, we do have a resource flyer, right?
I think there's a resource flyer. I know we have a resource flyer, and also
Okay.
maybe I can send it out a different way. But I know
Okay.
some off the top for us who are in New York, there's New York City Well. If you look up NYC Well, WELL, they have a hotline, crisis hotline, which I've actually used before. You can call somebody and you can choose whether you want to speak to a mental health professional or whether you want to just speak to a peer. So I know it's important sometimes for people to be able to choose that. So they do have that option, and they also have texting as well. So when you go to the website, they ask, if you want to chat, if you want to like so use like a chat room on the app, if you want to text, or if you want to call.
All right. Thank you for that. Um, Also, Victoria works for iRaise Girls and Boys International as well, and we do have a. I do believe we have a link up on the website, or maybe an emergency button there whenever you visit. And if you want to reach out to her, I believe she's connected on to the iRaise. Am I correct? Website. As you can see,
Yes.
as well as school social workers, you can always connect with her, and we have a hotline on right here on the website. I'm sorry, on the page, and that's for Doctor. Um, our doctor that we have is going to speak to us now, Halima. Am I saying your name correctly? Thank you. I'm sorry for that, Dr. Halima. V, you were sensational. As always, you show up, you show out. Thank you so much. And I learned something today. If anybody else have any questions or comments, you could put them in the chat. We have moderators there that are there for you to ask your questions. And right now, we want to say welcome to Dr. Halima Dargan, LPC. We have an information front. Thank you so much. Can I just read your bio? Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Dr. Halima Dargan is a licensed professional counselor in the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Louisiana. She is currently a staff clinician and research coordinator in American University's Counselor Center. She is also an approved clinical supervisor and an active member of multiple professional counseling organizations. Dr. H has experience working with children and adolescents, as she spent 4 years as the clinical director of an elementary school in New Orleans. Wow, that's really good. Before moving to Maryland in January of 2021. She also has experience with teens and adults in the community and private practice settings. Her special interest includes advocating for wellness and self care amongst mental health professionals. Very true. Destigmatizing mental health in Black communities, and mentoring and supervision of counselors in training and new counseling professionals. More recently, she has increased her focus on advocating for multidisciplinary mental health settings. Her therapeutic approach is integrative with special consideration to solution focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And I want to welcome to you none other than our Dr. Halima Dargan. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. We thank you for saying yes.
Not a problem. Yeah, I'm not sure.
At this time, we do want to have this nice. Okay, we do want to have a Q&A or a discussion part. And if there are any questions that are in the chat, would you please post your questions for us? Thank you. Okay. In the meanwhile, Doctor, would you please share some information with us? Some things that we can do to cope, or or the pressures that you see young people facing, especially those that are in college.
Mhm. Absolutely. So I caught kind of like the tail end of the last speaker. Could you share her name with me again? Was it Valencia? Valencia?
Victoria and
Victoria.
Karis there. Yes.
I'm sorry. I caught the end of that, and I just want to say, everything that I heard was absolutely spot on as far as like the signs, things to be aware of as far as people who might be experiencing suicidal ideation. It's really important to be aware of those signs because most people's first line of defense, if they are having those thoughts and feelings, is going to be the people around them, their friends, their family, whoever they feel closest to. And so if you're mindful of, or if you're aware of those signs, then you are a lot more likely to save a life. But I also would like to highlight in that you are not responsible for anyone else's life. And so if someone has decided to end their life, or feeling like they want to end their life, and they decide to follow through with that, there is no responsibility on any party other than the person that has made that decision. Oftentimes there can be a lot of guilt. Well, I didn't notice. I should have seen. I should have said. And it's natural to feel that way, especially if it's someone that you care about. But once someone has, decided that that is what they're going to do, then that is what they're going to do. There's nothing that you could have said or done that would have stopped them. And I think that, sometimes we can hear conflicting perspectives about that.
Right.
But the reality is, again, if someone wants to do it, they will. And there is nothing that you can do to stop them. And so I just want to put that out there to kind of help anyone who might, when I think about the guilt that can often be associated with those experiences, feeling like you wanted to do more. Again, it's a natural feeling. We actually had one suicide on our campus this school year, this academic year. It was a graduate student who was married, had children, or had a child. And, it was very difficult for the campus, as you could imagine. And a lot of that, well, who taught her? Who did she encounter? What could we have done differently? And, I think it's sometimes people aren't aware of the services or the resources that are available to them. And so one of the best ways to help someone who may be in that position is to make those resources visible. So whether it is a website or a phone number, or a service that a campus provides, making sure that they are known. There are a lot of students, I can say, who don't have a clear understanding of what our counseling center does. And I think, we have an Instagram page, we have our numbers everywhere, information about us everywhere. And some people still have no idea that we exist or what we do. So there's even work for us to do in that sense. And yeah, I would say that is probably one of the more important things, making sure that any resources and are visible to students on campus. And for students that are, or young adults who are transitioning to college, there's a certain amount of stress that is going to come in that transition, no matter how prepared you think you are. There are things that you don't know about, that you don't know, how you don't know that you don't know, and you won't know until you get there. And so even the most prepared person or prepared student is susceptible to stressors of that college transition, whether it's being with friends or finding new friends, being away from your family, having freedom that you never had before. In my own personal journey, I saw some things when I first got to college and saw friends experiencing their freedom for the first time. We think that as a positive thing, which it is, finding yourself. But for someone who maybe has never had that much freedom, or has been without parental guidance or structure, it can be like overwhelming. Like nobody's there to tell you to wake up. Nobody's there to tell you to eat. Nobody's there to tell you to do your assignments. Nobody's there to tell you don't talk to this boy or that girl or these people. And so navigating that can definitely be extremely stressful. And that's in addition to the academic part of it. Figuring out what you want to do with your life. There are a lot of ways that stress can impact college students, new college students, high school graduates. And so not being afraid to ask for help is really important. And that's part of destigmatizing mental health, and even understanding that transitioning to college it involves mental health. Not being afraid to have a conversation about being afraid or being uncertain, and finding like your people. And those are all things that I think are important for high school graduates, new college students, young adults to understand about the journey, and be aware of, so that they can be appropriately prepared. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry,
Mhm.
someone put in the chat. The teacher Stewart said, transitioning to college can definitely be a stressful time, especially when no one is there to walk you through it. So maybe the high schools could actually like put in resources, and parents, we can arm parents with resources, or caregivers with the resources that they need, in order for them to reach out, like, a packet, a nice, send off packet with everything they need, and, regular check-ins is what I think needs to be done. Healing spaces, and for those that are like, Karis that shared that, hey, she's going through these challenges and stuff that she's so called have, I forgot what you said, issues with, I forgot how she said, but so called is not, it is wrong with her, but she was able to, make that choice, that, either, you're just going to just keep going forward and moving forward, and not, let it take over your life. So we have more healing spaces and more talks about it, more check-ins, even for the professors, and make it mandatory in high schools, or at the college and campuses itself. So I thank you for the information that you shared. Do anyone else have any questions for Dr. Halima? Anyone else?
Yeah, I think
I
you
have a
mentioned like
question. I was wondering,
Okay.
how many college campuses actually have a counseling center? Like, do they all have a counseling center?
most of them do. It's very, very rare at this point in time to find a college that or university that does not have a counseling center. Um, and if they don't have a counseling center, then they're probably a small college or university, and they probably have a mental health professional either in the health center, or some even have them in the career center. So in some instances, it might take a little bit of work to find a mental health professional on a campus, but most colleges and universities at this point do have counseling centers.
Okay. They most do have them. But even having the resources, they can just chat in private. Sometimes they may not be open,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. I mean, most counseling centers operate on a typical workday, so 9 to 5.
Right.
So yeah, once they're closed, some of bigger ones will have like 24/7 support by phone,
Mhm.
but most don't. So having those resources, being aware of those resources, is really helpful for like after hours.
Okay. I have a
Um,
question. I have another question. Can you speak to how COVID impacted the college students and their mental health?
I it's been rough, because when you think about COVID, it is just another layer on top of things that they've already been dealing with. So if you think about students of color dealing with racial trauma, students who identify as LGBTQ, the issues that they are um, dealing with, the injustices that they are dealing with, and just everyday issues that college students have to deal with. COVID was just another layer on top of that. And it has been very difficult for some students to navigate through that. Um, you think about those who were freshmen in 2020, who are some just stepped on campus for the first time at the end of 2021. So they're going in or even going into their junior year and just being on the college campus. And so having to adjust to that. They're, it's at an older age. They've already done so much virtually, and now they have to kind of have that freshman experience 2 years later. It's been really hard for some of them. That virtual piece that I think we really realize how valuable human contact is after not having it for so long. Not being able to just, if you're having a rough day, go to your friend's dorm room or go to the caf or go to some other place on campus to decompress. Those options didn't exist for a lot of students for a while. And so they're internalizing everything and not having an outlet, and just all of the stress is compounding or building up for these students, those who experienced COVID during their college journey. A lot of social skill improvement needed because they have been virtual or in a virtual space for 2 years of their college journey. And so you have 20 and 21-year-olds even coming into the center or going to another service on campus and not really sure how to make friends. Like, what do I do, or where do I go? How do I let someone know that, I actually want to hang out with them? These are real issues that I've seen. And I know I'm in a university setting that is a bit more privileged. American University is a private institution and majority white. So it looks a little bit different than maybe what our communities look like, but the issues are still the same. They're still, and then we think about the marginalized students. So like our first gen students who have no one in their family who's been to college. And now they are a junior and they're going to college for the first time, or students of color, any student that's marginalized experiencing college for the first time on top of all of the other things that were happening during COVID. And then the grief aspect of it, those who, maybe lost a parent or an important person to them at the start of their college journey, and they still have to manage typical college stressors with now this layer of grief, and everyone's at a distance. And so it's just been really difficult for everyone involved, even the mental health professionals and the instructors or professors that are engaging with students. It's been difficult for everybody. And I think these coping strategies that I believe you all talked about, I'm not 100% sure, I did come in a little bit late, but coping strategies are extremely important in this case, in all of the cases that we've kind of mentioned. But knowing what to do, how to do it, where to go for help is really important for those students who are on their journey during COVID.
Okay, I have a question. There were someone LM is asking, are there resources for parents who are experiencing anxiety for their children who are returning back to person after 2 years of virtual learning? So we're looking for resources for parents. Am I correct?
Yeah, I can. I see. So I would say your first line of defense is going to be whoever your medical provider is in this instance. So even if it's a healthcare provider, like your primary care doctor, asking them, because that doctor's office may have resources available. To be quite honest, as much as that is needed, because again, I was working in the elementary setting at the start of COVID before I moved to Maryland. And so I completely understand what parents have experienced and that anxiety and fear with letting their children go back in person. But there aren't a lot of resources that are specifically targeted towards parents. So, your best bet is to kind of start wider and that's why I would say your primary care provider, um, any type of mental health community organizations that are close by. And what they'll typically do is a lot of them will have resources um, for the children or for the young adults, and they won't really have much for the parents. Um, some of the resources that are available for the children and the adults can also be used by the parents if we're talking coping strategies. Um, so, you know, one of the best resources I would say is having, even for the parent, having somebody to talk to, whether that's a mental health professional or other parents, and so that you can get an idea of how normal, whatever it is you're feeling, chances are there are other people who are feeling the exact same way. And the problem, of course, is finding those people. Facebook has a ton of like parenting groups. Of course, you have to be mindful. Some of them are like, you have to be mindful and selective of the Facebook parenting groups. But that's a good resource as well. But I would say definitely finding your people, whether that is other parents or a mental health professional, because while that anxiety is normal to feel, you also don't want to let it spill over into your child's emotional space
Right.
and have them feeling anxious about going back because you feel anxious when they're actually excited. And it's your job to want to be protective and make sure that everything is happening in the right way, but you don't want to um, put too much additional emotional stress on your child.
Okay. I thank you for that.
Mhm.
Oh wait, someone asked if a parent. Oh, sorry. You can hear me. If
Mhm.
a parent fears their child might be suicidal, should they approach their child first or seek a mental health professional?
Absolutely ask your child first. There is no um, one of the biggest myths is that someone you will cause someone to be more suicidal, right? By asking them, are you feeling suicidal? So immediately automatically I would say ask your child. If there is any inclination you have as a parent, ask them. And there is a lot of data that supports that, just having the validation of my parent being aware of what I'm experiencing, or even being able to notice, my parent notices that something is off, and they actually ask me. Sometimes people are just waiting, and that's just like children, adults, adolescents. There's a fear of just saying, and so the people are just waiting for someone to ask, to say, are you okay? Or are you having these thoughts or feelings, so that they can have a chance to actually open up and say what's wrong. So I would absolutely say ask your child first. If if you have any suspicions and you ask your child and they say no, but you have maybe noticed some of the signs or symptoms that V mentioned, then you can seek help from a mental health professional so that they can support you in that process. But I know that there's fear in asking a child if they are having those feelings, especially if you're asking them directly. But think about um, what is on the line if you don't ask. Thinking about the life you save when you ask and they actually have an outlet to respond. So yeah, that was a long version of saying yes.
I wanted to add.
That
I wanted to.
was really good. Did somebody else was speaking?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's V. I was gonna add too. It is very important to go directly to the source, and also to be gentle with how you address things. Like when you say seek a mental health professional, um, I would say definitely, um, you know, go to your physician first, or go to someone that your child is already working with or trust, and be careful too of certain triggers, right? So like I know that if you call 911, they're gonna come with handcuffs. Usually, they're going to want to detain somebody. They're going to want to put them in an ambulance and directly transport them, which sometimes can be more traumatic. So thinking about how you can do things in a way that might not re-trigger or traumatize the person. Now, if it's an emergency and this person is, saying, I have a gun, I'm about to do it, by all means, you call emergency services. But if it's not at emergency level yet, and the person is saying, I'm feeling, like I don't want to be here anymore, if we do need to get them professional help, I would strongly encourage you to take them in yourself, to sit with them and to kind of, offer them that I'm here with you. You're still human. Everything is okay. Versus like I have to call these people and you don't know what's going on, and now you're scared, especially depending on the age of the person or their previous experiences, like if they've ever had situations with the cops or with hospitals previously. Um, and also, I wanted to mention too, like just to add on to the college COVID stuff. Like, I was definitely in grad school. I had to graduate. I was the first graduating class of the pandemic. So just adding, like, it really was crazy. Um, because you have to realize, like was mentioned, you have certain coping skills already in place sometimes. Like if you know that you're chronically suicidal, you always have these thoughts, whatever. But your safe spaces, or what you like to do. Like for me, I like at that point, I'm a whole different person after the pandemic. But pre-pandemic, I like to party. I also like to be in my safe space, which is my school. At the time, I was going to Columbia School of Social Work. I could easily go to the library, and even just like doing class, I could print stuff out. I could be in a space where it's quiet and clean, and then having to change from that to independent. Some people are like, "Oh, I'm so happy to be virtual." Yeah, but some people, may have siblings running around or may not have a working computer and started to really feel like, wow, something that was going so great is now chaotic, or now I'm put in a situation where I was so excited to be in, I'm now taking a few steps back. I know that happened for me where I was like, I feel exposed. I'm going to be virtual in this way. I didn't sign up for virtual, and now people get to see my house. People are telling me to turn on the camera. There might be
Yeah.
sounds or whatever, my Wi-Fi going in and out. So just to add, like now is kind of a little better because we've learned some things. I think in the beginning, just people having to go to college for the first time with an idea. I don't even know what to expect. I think like does weigh on people.
Thing.
And so like a lot of people are dealing with that for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing we want to have our students prepared for that. And we do have resources we want to post up. And I want to thank you, Dr. Halima. And also, can you please, someone, we do have more resources that we put together that they can easily scan. Our audience will be able to see that shortly. And we truly appreciate like the gems you dropped today, everyone. It was really good. Like I learned a lot, and I know for sure we got a lot to do. As why am I echoing? Somebody music is on? Okay, sorry. As far as I'm concerned, we have a lot to do with the colleges and get a lot of resources there for the students on campus. And that's our next goal. So
Yes,
Paris,
definitely.
B, Dr. Halima, we will definitely be sharing your information on our different social media platforms. And I want to thank you all for coming. This right here, are you able to make that a little larger? This is the resource doc we have, the mental health resource doc that we have. Um, yeah, you're gonna have to hide it, right? Right, you can take everything off. Right. This is you can easily scan these documents. We're doing a check-in right now because these were some serious topics that we were going over. Um, we have New York City Well. They have a free hotline and text line, and that's the if you can see my cursor, that's this one right here. They have New York City Thrive Initiative. I believe this helps with the training on. This is a good resource for parents as well, I think. Right. We have mental health first aid free workshops. And can you make it bigger for me, please? Thank you. Larger. Okay, you made it smaller. Okay. Well, we Rigo Olivia. We have American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We have the crisis text line. So you can easily take a picture of this flyer, scan it. It's going to be on iRaiseInc.org website. Excuse me. We have the National Suicide Hotline here, the National Alliance for Mental Health Illness here, the Teen Health and Wellness, and ZocDoc. Would you play the video for us, please? We got something for you. Thank you. Okay.
In full disclosure, I have a confession. I'm a Facebook stalker. I'm that person who doesn't really post a whole lot about my own life, but I know everything that's going on in all my friends' life. In my Facebook stalking, I did something. I've noticed our conversation about mental health has changed. It used to be silence when we talked about mental health, but now we have more people talking about how we can make a difference. This even includes some of our celebrities, like Charlamagne the God from The Breakfast Club, Taraji P. Henson, a noted actress, and Sterling K. Brown from This Is Us. They're standing with us to say it's time for us to have meaningful about mental health. And as a psychologist, I'm here for all of that because we need to have that conversation. 1 in 5 adults in this country has had, is having, or will have a mental illness. 18% of adults in this nation are saying, I don't feel my best mentally at least half of the month. And when we're talking about people who are dealing with emotional health issues, only 30% are actually getting help. That means we have a lot of people out there in need of emotional health care, and they're doing it all by themselves. So that's why I get to do what I do, which is go around the state and talk about mental health. And we go into communities and we say, hey, we need to have this conversation. They're like, yes, we need to have this conversation. Please come talk to us. And then we come down with our team and we sit down and we have the conversation and nobody shows up. Or one person shows up. And so then we say, hey, what happened? I thought y'all were ready for this conversation. And they say, oh, no, I don't need the conversation. Those people over there need it. I'm not the one that's crazy. It's the people in my community that are crazy. I wanted you to help them. That even though we're talking more about mental health, we're looking at mental health through a window where we can see other people and not a mirror where we see ourselves. And what that means is that when we're talking about mental health, it's someone else's issue, not our issue. And if we're going to make meaningful change about mental health, it has to become our issue. So then how do we do that? How do we make it our issue? Well, we can start by talking about the things in our environment that lead to poor emotional health. I heard a story recently where someone went to a pond and all the fish were dead. And they said, we can look at those fish and say, what's wrong with those fish? Or we can say, what's wrong with the water that's causing all the fish to die? And do you know that there's some things in our society that make us have some emotional health issues? I'm here to tell you, it is hard to be emotionally healthy when you are broke, when you're hungry, when you don't have a job, when you're dealing with grief and loss. And all of those things are going on in our society on a daily basis. So it makes sense that we're not always okay. But maybe if we start explaining it like that, people will be more likely to open up and say, hey, I'm not okay. Or maybe we need to target the cultural beliefs that make it hard about mental health. You know, the ones when we go to rural communities and it's like hard work can handle anything. Or maybe when we go to faith communities and we hear, I'm too blessed to be stressed. Or some ethnic minority groups that say, I should be able to handle anything because I have this history of resilience in my bloodline and they had to deal with adversity. So maybe we start talking about those cultural beliefs and actually saying it is completely possible to be blessed and stressed. Or I can have a lot of resilience in my background and still be having issues dealing with adversity. Maybe that's what we need. And if we do those two things, if we talk about what goes on in our environment and we target cultural beliefs, that's great. But let me tell you about what happens when we start telling our story. So NAMI Arkansas, an organization here, had a mental health awareness walk. And the executive director invited a young man from his church who was living with mental illness. And the next day, he went to church, and you know that quiet time before church starts? The young man came running up to him and said, "Hey, guess what I found out yesterday? I found out that I'm not different." And isn't that really what keeps us looking at mental health through a window? It's because we're afraid that if we say, "I'm not okay," it's going to make us different. But when we start telling our stories, we realize that the things that we think are going to make us different really are the things that unite us. I saw this at work when I was working with 3 young ladies who had been working on one of my projects for years. And we were having a conversation, and one of the young ladies said, "You know, I lost my job once, and when I lost my job, I stopped wearing makeup, and I started wearing the clothes I like to wear, and that's not like me." And when she had the courage to mention that time when she wasn't okay, everyone else in the room had permission to do it too. So someone else said, "Hey, I had a time where I didn't leave this room. I only went in one room in my house." Someone else said, "I wasn't going out like I used to." And even I talked about how I didn't clean my house for 6 months after my mom died. And let me tell you, if she was here, she would not be okay with that. But we all were in there, and we united and we bonded in a different way. And our work changed because we were no longer looking at it doing something for someone else. We were looking at doing something for all of us. I saw the power of telling stories again recently after the tragic helicopter crash in California that took the lives of 9 individuals, including NBA legend Kobe Bryant. For the first time, maybe not the first time, but I don't see a lot of grown women and men actually openly talking about their pain. But on national TV, I saw adults saying, "Hey, I'm not okay. Hey, I'm hurting. Hey, this is hard." And because they had the courage to do that, I saw people in my own social circle saying, "I remember when I had to deal with grief and this was difficult. And I remember when I had to do this and this was hard. And I'm not okay. And what do I do to get help? And how do I talk about this with other people?" So the courage of standing up and saying, "I'm not okay," actually was a catalyst for people starting their journey to getting emotionally well. So how do we do this? How do we tell our stories? For some people, it's just sharing the message that being okay, not being okay really is okay. You can wear a t-shirt. For other people, it may be creating a safe space for people to talk about their mental health issues. We see college professors having ribbons on their door to say, "You can come talk to me whenever." We have support groups at churches and organizations where people can say, "I want to talk about the issues." For others, it means being a lending ear to somebody, being a listening ear. Also, it means maybe connecting them to services that they need. But for everybody, it means that we are openly admitting the times when we're not okay. Because we can all say there's been at least one time when we weren't okay. And we're looking for intentional opportunities to share that story. Not just to talk about the times when we were down, to give hope, to say that even if we're not okay, we can still move forward to being okay later. So as I wrap this up, next time I'm at Facebook stalking, which won't be long from now, I hope that the mental health conversation changes again. I hope that I see people openly saying, "Hey, I'm not okay." And I hope that I see people saying, "It's okay that you're not okay." Not because we want to stay there, but because we realize that admitting that you're not okay is the first step to really being okay. Thank you.
That was really good. So we want to do a quick mental health check-in at all our listeners. Would you just in the comment section, thumbs up, thumbs down. If we need to chat with someone, we have resources that we have available for you. So we're going to give you 5 minutes to do that, and for all our guests and our wonderful team from RA's Girls and Boys International, thank you so much. Thank you so much, and we're definitely going to connect with you and share your information for our community as well. Karis, Dr. Halima, and Dr. Well, hey, V, we would definitely be having you on our spotlight. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. And I hope the last motivational video that we shared with you was to tell you that you're not alone. And as Karis said, you got to keep pushing forward. Okay? And life is worth living. Life is totally worth living. Thank you so much. Mental check in.
This is Rose. I am inspired. Thank you all so much for joining in and telling your stories and your experience.
I totally agree. Thank you.
Yep, and I definitely agree. It's such an important conversation to have. And I think it's important to remember that, it doesn't have to be something that's big and over the top, for it to be something that's disturbing you and to be something that can affect your day to day life and day to day living. I think sometimes people think that they can only reach out, or if it's something they feel is kind of minor or that someone else might think is minor and not a big deal, that they may keep it to themselves. But, we all have different tolerance levels and different, we all have different pain points as well. So what may not be a big deal to you may feel like the end of the world to me. So I think it's always important to, kind of try to see things from other people's perspective and to always kind of keep an eye on your neighbor, so to speak. So I definitely appreciate, appreciate the conversation and just encouraging people to, not be silent, definitely be vocal. Find someone that you can trust. There got to be at least one person that you can trust. And sometimes it's internal. Sometimes you got to learn to trust your own self and not listen to the naysayers and the people that are out there, but trusting you and knowing that, as Karen said, that you won't always be in this moment, but that there are other positive things to come. So this was a great conversation.
Thank you. And we will be doing this more often because word has to get out. The word has to get out. And we want to say adieu to everyone that joined us tonight. We have the resource flyer up. You can always leave your email at outrageinc.org if you need any help. And thank you. Have a beautiful night.